we've got plenty to talk about today.
Well, you've got another meeting anyway, don't you?
Tonight? Yeah, I do. I've got the band practice sort of stuff, yeah. Anyway, but let's just get into it. Let's get into it. You want to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. And welcome to the Pagey Train. Tonight I have in the studio with me Misty McPhail, General Manager of Made in the West. Welcome, Misty.
Thank you very much.
Obviously, this may be one of the last podcasts in studio that I'm going to do for a while. We can get away with this one because we're in quarantine together. Is that right? Isolation. We're not quarantine, we're in isolation.
Yes.
But obviously, we're here to talk about some heavy impact sort of stuff, I guess, because of the coronavirus, COVID-19, that fucking annoying thing, whatever you want to call it.
That reason we're home every weekend.
That reason that the world has changed overnight. But I think we'll be talking about Made in the West. Is Made in the West still running? But let's just put it out there straight away. Made in the West is still running at this stage.
At this stage, yeah. We don't really know what November looks like at this point, do we?
We don't know what November looks like, but it certainly is after September, and that's so far the government's prediction when this will roll out too. It's also word on the street. We've been hearing a lot of rumours, and I suppose you guys would be hearing a lot of rumours out there as well about when this is going to end and what impacts are going to have on us socially and economically. But I guess what we should talk about is how to enter Made in the West this year, because it's such a different year. Like, you've had a few ideas about what people can do to enter a film.
Well, this year I think is really going to bring about a different type of film coming from people. There's certainly going to be some of the films that people have been making in the last couple of years, and they'll want to submit something that's perhaps already in the post-production phase or completed or near to complete, and so those films will be able to come into this year's entries. But certainly there are ways to be able to make films in isolation. Did you see that some of the major players like BBC calling out for scriptwriters to talk about to hand in scripts for any actors that are in isolation, essentially. So stories around people who are in isolation, telling, and making a film out of that, which is a great idea.
One of the things that inspired this episode, though, is a friend of a friend 3 times removed made a film who was someone who was at Made in the West, and they made this sort of word essay. They did a word essay is a good way to describe
that. Or a video essay.
A video essay, yeah.
With spoken word poetry.
Yeah, why do we do that? Mix up word and video. No, it's, a video essay.
Yeah, her name was Eleanor Webb Thomas. Shout out to Sian, who's over in Cornwall. Eleanor Webb Thomas is a bit of a fan of Made in the West and the films. She's even though she's in the UK, she has seen some of the Made in the West films and has been following our journey. Well, I saw one of her films the other day that she had made, and she'd only made it in a local neighbourhood and out in her backyard and sort of whispering in amongst the washing hanging out the back. But it was a really moving piece, and she said a lot with a very small amount of perhaps production effort.
Well, that's how a film essay goes. There's not usually a lot of production value behind it. Like, no, don't get me wrong. No, you can get production value out of it. You don't necessarily need a lot of money behind it. But it's something that's not just dialogue-driven, it's picture-driven. So you've got to think of the film essay, video essay as something that's poetic and something that you want to have a synchronicity or even asynchronicity against what's been said and what's been shown.
Juxtaposing some idea,
well, you could do that.
Visual idea against,
Yeah, you could be talking about, the ideas of love and hope and, be going into drain pipes with graffiti and, dirt and grit and grates and,
What does that say about your impression of love and hope, Ross?
I know, but it was the first... Well, I guess what it says is a juxtaposition of what I think it is. I think of love and hope, I think of clouds.
I think of drains.
I think of dirty drains with rubbish clogging up the system, killing the planet. That's what I think about when I think about love.
Love and hope.
See, there
always
you go.
Leads downwards.
There's your film essay right there. Bang, done. Let's do an extract of that. But yeah, Made in the West is certainly still on.
Well, yeah, at this point. I mean, so it was really interesting when all the announcements first came out, because obviously, we both work in the arts industry and I work in festivals more broadly in Sydney. And
major dick punch.
Certainly a lot of events that are impacted. We're, very small in comparison to some of the big names that are, that are being affected at the moment. And the first announcement that came out that was about for events for more than 500 people that didn't affect us because we have, 300, 330 people in the room. And so, when that first announcement came out, we weren't really too worried. We thought, okay, maybe we might...
that one pinged straight off the arm. We were like, ping, don't worry about that.
We might sail on
We're too small to fail.
Yeah. But then, within a few days, the announcement that over 100 was no longer going to be allowed. And then, now, what are we, a couple of weeks later, and it's no more than 2 people are allowed out in public together. So obviously things are changing day by day. And so our plan is to wait until, August, maybe September, probably August, I would say, maybe end of July, and just assess where we're up to at that point. Who knows? They might extend the current lockdown situation past September, and in which case we need to think about different formats for Made in the West. And obviously being a smaller festival, we're a little bit more agile. We can maybe look at doing something online. I've been gunning for this for years.
Yeah. Well, it's something that you are
idea.
quite passionate about. Look, we can drill into digital festival spectrums in a moment, but let's just cap off Made in the West for a moment. But there are certainly other models that we're looking at as far as content goes. So folks, don't be worried. If you enter Made in the West, there will be plenty of content to surround your content. There's plenty of content out there. I guess what we're asking for is don't if you're in a position to continue making content in isolation, in quarantine, perhaps proceed.
But there will undoubtedly be a lot of people who can't make films this year.
Totally.
There are productions that we cancelled.
Oh, Misty, so you're rubbing salt into a wound here. It's been 2 years, man. 2 years. 2 years I've been planning that production. Not doing it.
Yeah,
it's
we
next
definitely
year now.
feel it, and we're in amongst those people who can't make those productions this year. And certainly, a lot of people are grappling.
Three productions canned.
People are currently grappling with not having a job.
Totally.
Making a film is if you're in a position to be able to make a film from home and be creative and have the mental headspace to be able to do that, then great. That's fantastic. And if Made in the West doesn't go ahead this year, then guess what? Those submissions carry forward to
we'll have double
year.
we'll have perhaps almost double the submissions next year.
But we did have such good news this year that we wanted to bring out.
Yeah, we do.
If Made in the West does go ahead, we might have an extended
well, you have to watch this space.
We
have to watch this space. We do have some plans for expansion in Made in the West.
Shout out to the Event Cinemas team who have been very wonderful to work with
big shout out to Event Cinemas. And a big shout out to WSU as well for everything that they've been doing. Being active in the community and active in the film community to try and also contribute to that growing wave of storytellers. So we certainly do have news for you guys in relation to Made in the West, but I think we should.
It's all in amongst coronavirus stuff at the moment, isn't it?
I don't think we want to fill the space amongst the static.
We'll wait till after mid-year and figure out what to do then.
Yeah.
For the time being, it's not too much. It's not too important to make a decision straight away. In the meantime, we're just trying to find ways to be creative, keep our creative juices flowing. Think about what we can make, think about what we can do. I hear a rumor that even the Pagey train might be looking at doing something.
Oh yeah, of course you've heard this rumour.
I can't not hear the rumour.
I was inspired. Last year because I took a break for the Pagey train, and a few people said to me, "Man, why'd you stop making the Pagey train?" So I said, "I haven't stopped, man. I'm just taking a break. It's a lot of work. Running a show and doing." All the things that we do is a lot of work, and I just wanted a summer holiday. So I took a summer holiday.
How dare you?
And
it might have been me.
No, but I genuinely needed a break. Like we'd been working around the clock for over a year. I think. I don't think I got a full break last time.
Plus, it's hard to book people at Christmas time too, because people are away.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
Want to give everybody a break.
But I suppose I could have looked at it from filming 3 episodes over the do 3 pre-recordings and release them over Christmas sort of thing, and I can see the arguments to and fro for that. But it's about momentum. People wanted to see the show, and I was just inspired to keep making the show. So I actually, at the end of last year, I said, I'm going to halve my efforts, people. I'm halving my efforts. I'm going to halve my projects. So by January this year, I think I doubled every one of my efforts. I doubled the amount of films we're making. and I doubled the bookings for the Pagey train.
Down.
Yeah, double down on everything. Even double down on the band as well. We just, instead of going, I'm going to halve everything because life's a bit, stressful. I decided to double everything. And, now this coronavirus business has gotten in the way. And I guess I'm still inspired to keep making the Pagey train. So the Pagey train is moving online. So I'm going to be doing interviews across Zoom and Skype, things like that.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah, I'm going to start lining up. I've already started actually lining up guests. I've got my first guest for next week. I've got to reschedule some of my other guests. Like I had a special guest. I don't want to blow the top of it this week, but I had another fellow podcaster, and we were going to do a really cool episode this Friday. So we've postponed that. So there's a few things that have had to move out of the way so that this can move in the way. But I see the benefit of it being perhaps I'll be able to do, because it's always annoying when someone can't come to the studio. So it's always good to have that other capability, I guess. Like the Pagey train was moving to a live switch, perhaps even live to YouTube and live to our other streaming events, which is Spotify and mainly iTunes and Encore. Anchor. Sorry, not Encore. Anchor. Subscribe to the Pagey train on YouTube. Subscribe. It's right there. But there will be another arm of the Pagey train. So there's a few guests that are out of state that I'd love to talk to. And it's one of those things that I've put out there and I go, man, if you're ever in Sydney, drop by and I'll do an interview with you. So now I'm not thinking about it that way. I'm thinking about, well, I can still have the people in studio once this craziness subsides, but then there will be this other element of the Pagey train that's online. So I've started testing. Testing has been successful. So, I'm shooting my first one tomorrow. Won't announce the guest yet. I'll do the old Instagram, get on the gram for the updates for who the guest is going to be. But if any of our listeners out there that want to do an episode of the Pagey train, don't feel free to contact me. I feel free to say no, but feel free to contact me. And I'm happy to do an episode over Zoom and Skype.
Yeah, I think it'll really expand the types of people, the number of people, the different conversations that you can have, because you don't have to worry so much about having people's time available to be able to drive and come to the studio, as nice as the studio is.
Yeah, well, look.
They don't get the full service.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's the same with everything that we do, right? It's about the experience. It's all about the experience. If people have a good experience, they'll come back, they'll watch, they'll keep doing it, right? And that's what you want. You want people that want to come back on the show. You want to get guests that have something interesting to say. And with that said, though, when the guest is here, I want them to have a great experience. I want them to sit in a cool studio. I want them to have whatever drink that they want. And there's 5 minutes into it, they just get locked in. We both get locked into this scenario where we're forced to talk to each other. When I've got a producer, when we're not in isolation, we can look things up on the internet, and there's this experience of being in the room, and there's this a glitter and glamour about it, which is quite fun. And then that actually subsides because that gives you a bit of pressure, because then you've got to go, well, no, I've got to have this conversation, and then you sort of get lost and locked in. It's quite an art form. I always knew there would be obviously skill sets that you'd need to get into podcasting, or a radio show, which is pretty much what it is. It's a little radio show that I'm running. But the experience of doing it is just phenomenal. I absolutely love it. I just hope that I can get that same experience online, but I think it'll be a different experience. So I guess there's this line between having that studio experience and getting that good story. Because you want to get that good interview, and sometimes you're separated by geographics, and sometimes that story is worth going onto Skype or Zoom to do it. And I think this will be a good test for the Pagey train.
Yeah.
Am I speaking about myself in the third person there? Well, what's good for the Pagey train is good for us.
Very true.
Very true. Yeah, so watch this space, man. We'll be coming out with episodes. My goal is to get to my 50th episode. I'm about to do that in the next 20. Hopefully by the end of the year, I've got about 80 episodes up the belt. Up the belt? Notched on the belt? Up the sleeve.
Up the sleeve.
Yeah, get it up the sleeve, not up the belt. That sounds a bit... Woo! Yeah, wow. Where does he fit all that time? Yes. But look, man, we have taken some major hits. Let's just have a big shout out to all of our entertainment friends out there. All of these other industries that have been hit. These casual workers that have been hit.
Terrible, isn't it?
Even permanent employees that are forced to take leave. We don't know what's around the corner from that. So
There are
just
so many industries that have been affected.
Oh, look,
overnight.
look, we were just so lucky because we've worked from contract to contract. We've been in, a casual workforce for over half a decade, probably longer.
Contractor and
so we're just lucky that our current configuration allows us to work from home and pursue our creative pursuits.
I was pretty
but there's
lucky.
others out there that aren't so lucky. So a big shout out to you guys. I know it's really tough.
people are grappling with some really new situations right now.
Totally.
Some dire situations too.
Look, when they were talking about the bushfires and these sort of things, you keep hearing the word. Like, hey, I know, but you keep hearing this word unprecedented. I think the coronavirus has really brought the true definition of unprecedented, and anything before it was just like, well, yeah, you could have done something about that, but, and I suppose they could have done something about the coronavirus as well, but in our mindset and the zeitgeist of the times, this is, we've all been hit by this car and we're all trying to stand up and, dust ourselves off and see what the injuries are.
Well, it was the same with the drought. It was the same with the bushfires. Ultimately, all of them are crises that could have been averted, with consistent effort over time or prior planning to, decide what you would do in a particular situation, act quickly in order to mitigate the issue. Like, all of those things are possible. I think the thing that this really brings home is that the fact that it's global is something that's really different for me because the fires were very, very local for us. They're at the back of our house in the Blue Mountains, and surrounding Sydney and all across New South Wales.
And the smoke billowed everywhere. No one escaped the effects of it. No.
And then if you think bigger than that, okay, it was all the way up the East Coast. And then if you think bigger than that, actually it was also over in South Australia and in WA too. So you go, oh, wow, it's like it's national. And that's why it caught so much attention being overseas. But now this is something that is really making me aware of how connected the entire globe is, whether that's through movement of peoples, movement of commodities, movement of money, movement of ideas, information.
Transfer of information.
The whole thing is really interesting, fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I know. Look, it is fascinating, but it's also, for me, in some ways, a bit harrowing.
Scary, totally.
It's terrifying because, in my mind, I went to university 10 years ago. Started going to university 10 years ago, and one thing at university will teach you is check your sources. Right? One of the things it teaches you is to assess what information that you're receiving and assess if it's right or wrong. Like if it's coming from a place of propaganda or if it's just for outright mischief, or is there what interests are in that newspaper saying what they're saying? And at the moment, as someone who's looked at this, in that sort of lens for a decade, it is really hard to determine who is telling the truth about anything. So you have hopes. You have hopes in listening to the contrast between Channel 9 and the ABC and what the government is putting out. You have hopes that they're telling us the truth, but you just as this has gone on, it's just I guess my cynical part of my brain has been going, wow, what if they're just totally lying to us about everything?
Well, if you control the information, you can control what people choose to do with that information, right? Well, you can guess or you can make estimates on what people will do. So information is very, very powerful. So whoever is controlling the information definitely does have a lot of power and a lot of stake in this particular moment in our lives, But I think the way that I think about it is that maybe there's like 20 or 30% over on this side where you go, oh, I can verify that that's true. And there's like 20 or 30% over on this side where you can go, oh, I'm pretty sure that that's not right. That's not true. But there's like this 40% in the middle that's Oh, I really don't know whether it's true or not, where it's coming from, and sometimes you just don't have time to go and chase.
No, you don't. That's what I mean. You got to take a lot of things at face value,
back
and then
to its original source.
And some of that out of face value is the disparity between organisations and the messaging they're putting out, and then you go, well, perhaps they're just in a flux, and everyone's just like totally fucked, and no one knows what they're doing. They're just doing their best, which you hope is what's going on.
Say things like that.
You hope that's what is going on. Well, that's what unprecedented means. It means we don't know what we're doing.
It means we're on the edge of what we know.
But yeah. Unprecedented means when you frame it like that, it means we don't actually know what we're doing, but we're giving it a good go. That's another way of saying that.
Yes, and you rely on expert advice. That's
you can rely on it when it's helpful. But we'll end up digressing and going straight into politics here. But I still wanted to cover a little bit more.
I don't want to talk about politics.
I don't want to talk about politics. There's enough of that on the TV. If you want to check out some politics, it's right out there. It's just a click away. Don't change the channel if you want to. Just stay on the show. All jokes aside, but we were talking about the entertainment industry. Like, it was the first thing to go. It was the primed match that just in a day. But hopefully, what I'd like to encourage out of people is, once this is all over, go out and see a show.
Absolutely.
Go out and see a band. Go out and see a movie.
Well, there are also, opportunities to support local artists in the meantime as well. There are plenty of people who are currently migrating their models online. There are plenty of individual artists who are currently taking their creative lessons online. Hire an artist. That's the answer. Finding local people who may have transferable skills to be able to help in these new times and unprecedented times. There are plenty of people out there, some really highly skilled and talented people, not only in the events industry and in the arts industry, but in so many different industries that have overnight been think hospitality, think airlines, there's so many industries.
Well, the thing is, with the entertainment industry, most people in the entertainment industry work in hospitality.
Yeah, as a backup.
Yeah, that's their backup. So some have got both barrels. That's why I think what we do, we're fortunate because our working lives are so complex that if we take a hit on some things, you don't take a hit on others.
Unless we get really unlucky and we take a hit on all of them.
Oh, if we're taking a hit on everything, if that's what I mean, that's when it gets crazy, right? I think that's where fear is.
Then it really will be a pirate radio station.
We'll be going fully pirate radio station. I'll be looking for
broadcasting from the apocalypse.
Oh man, I'll be looking for a transmitter, sticking it up on the roof. Out there with my sitting guard at my pirate radio with my compound bow. You will not take me off the air.
I laugh, but secretly I know it's true.
Yeah, totally would happen. I totally would run pirate radio if we were in the, Apocalypse 2.0. But it's nice to be in the Apocalypse 1.0. It's an easy work style, lifestyle. You can work from home. Go out on pleasant walks. Take the dog for a walk.
Yes.
Our neighbour's dog. No, but
take ourselves for a walk.
No, but our neighbour's dog, right, barks at every dog that walks by. And, oh my gosh, that dog has been barking. Everyone is walking their goddamn dog.
Yeah, I like walking the neighbourhood just so that we can make everybody else's dogs bark so that then we can pay them all back for the days of torment that we're dealing with.
Total days of torment. But no, you were touching on it before, speaking of which, about, crisis management. You study crisis management, looking from, all the points from perhaps, I don't know, the Banking Royal Commission to... say the bushfires, the drought, COVID-19. You have so much material coming up for your crisis management courses that you teach.
I shouldn't be so excited about it, but I am
plenty of material.
The nerd in me is very excited to have lots of fodder for conversation in next semester's classes. I teach at the local uni. I teach in a public relations class called Crisis Communications, or Issues, Risk and Crisis Communications. It's a great class. I actually had a student message me me a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago. I've lost track of time in all of this. And she, shout out to Madeline, said, I can't believe the assessment that we did last semester was so good, and life right now is imitating that assessment, thrown in the deep end with an online simulation of a real-time crisis rolling out, and that's essentially, what everybody is dealing with. And what I'm interested in as someone who's teaching in that space is how different organisations choose to represent themselves or convey their message and frame their message to their audiences in different ways. Obviously everybody's impacted differently in this particular situation, but I find it fascinating. I find it interesting how quickly people will respond. I think it took 24 hours for me to see a Bunnings ad with a click and collect. And I was like, well done, Bunnings.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. I think it is a good idea. I've been dying to click and collect. I'm just waiting to click and collect.
It's about identifying what the problem is and what's standing between your audience and your product or service, and helping them connect those two things and bypass the issue. So the issue for Bunnings was having too many people in the store. So great, you don't have to look down the aisles anymore. You can look online, click and collect at the front. I'm sure that they've probably now got more problems at the front desk than they do inside the store. But at the time, it was a really quick response to it. Yeah. I've had numerous.
Well, it's a good response because it keeps the cash flowing, right?
I've had numerous emails from so many different mailing lists I forgot I was even on in the last couple of weeks. You start to get to know all of the different companies you've bought something with or signed up to in the last couple of years. Suddenly you're getting emails from all of these long-lost organisations telling you what they're doing about COVID-19 and how they're keeping me safe. And I'm like, I haven't been there in a couple of years, but very interesting to hear what they're saying.
Thanks for remembering me.
Thanks for remembering me. Yeah. I appreciate that you're looking after my safety. Yeah. But yeah, everybody's dealing with it in their own way, and there are general ways to do things well. Planning for different contingencies, like being prepared and having your messaging, knowing what you would say if something happened.
So you mean like kind of wargaming?
Oh, possibly.
Is that a way?
You could definitely think of it that way.
You think of it as wargaming, like what do we do if this went wrong? What if we do if our one of our directors turns out to be a Weinstein? How do we deal with that?
Absolutely.
What do we do if one of our couriers runs over somebody? How do we frame that?
What if somebody within your organisation suddenly you find out is embezzling money? How do you take that in a public scenario?
Yeah.
What about a natural disaster? What happens if it floods? What are you going to do? We've thought about this here in our local area because we've seen all of the messaging about do you have your flood plan? We're like, what flood plan? I don't have a flood plan.
And it did flood. It did. Right after the drought, it flooded. How predictable.
Yeah.
For some, maybe. For some.
So I think, and I think the key is to be proactive so that then you can reassure people that you are doing something about it and that you're prepared. Because if someone's going to put their life in your hands by coming to your business or coming on your holiday trip or coming on your cruise liner or whatever it is, then they want to know that they'll be safe, And that's important.
And that's the crisis management sort of model of things to do in a crisis.
Yeah, and I think the thing to remember too is that you can come out of a crisis actually looking with a better reputation than you went in.
Yeah, okay, so I guess a part of your message is it's not what's happening to you, it's how you're dealing with it.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. How you handle that and how you help others to handle it in the process can, make a really big difference in people's lives. You can definitely see organisations starting to take advantage of that. I mean, look at your big supermarkets opening up the 7-8 a.m. for elderly and disabled shoppers, and then the debacle that it was on the first day because they hadn't really planned it very well, and then it kind of.
Well, it's one of those things. It was shot. It was
shot.
shot from the hip by exec, and then it was up to management to plan in 24 hours. And then, but that's when you get someone screen. Yeah, this thing is like when you're dealing with customer complaint or stakeholder complaint, whatever it is. Generally, they have no thoughts or feelings for your situation at all. They're just worried about their situation and how you have broken it.
Oh, shout out to all the poor people, the lovely, lovely people who are working at supermarkets at the moment.
Yeah. Don't shout at people. Don't shout at people.
Yeah, I feel
people
sorry.
under stress,
I feel
man.
sorry for those people who have to deal with with stressed people who are obviously just, trying to
they're trying to feed
provide
their
for their families and things like that. But you just kind of got
I need some toilet paper for my family. And I need 100 rolls of it.
It's moved on now, right? We've moved from the toilet paper. We've moved into pasta and beans.
It's fucking disappointing is what it is.
I feel like where we're at the moment, I looked last night, I was trying to find a new Pilates mat online last night. Where we're at now is home gym equipment. I think everybody has now decided, okay, we're inside for 6
settling
months.
in.
We're going to have to work
Oh, man,
out.
I set up my home gym. I set it up out the back.
Oh, your home gym's great.
Yeah, I've got it set up. I've got the crossbar. I've gotten busted out the samurai sword, the size, the nunchucks. Doing katas out the back on a bagola that looks like a mixture between Japanese and Italian.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very peaceful space out there, very zen.
I think the neighbours are getting freaked out though by what they're doing now. Now they're doing katas like and then because I've got my headphones in and I sometimes talk to myself when I'm working out. I go, come on, you pussy, come on, come on. And I just afterwards I was thinking, because then I do katas with the sword or the size and shit, and then I realised that was quite aggressive. I wonder what the neighbours think.
Yes.
Don't worry, they're too afraid to be thinking. Shout out to my neighbours. I'm really sorry for the disturbances.
Imagine if we found out that one of the neighbours was a listener.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe they will. Everyone's in lockdown. I got to tell you, lockdown has been good for the Pagey train.
Oh, yeah?
Analytics are going up.
Oh, that's good.
Although I did have an awesome guest last week. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So audience spiked over that. But my listener audience is growing quite fast, which is really good.
Oh, yeah. I've listened to some of your episodes on Spotify.
Yeah. So Spotify, I get the most from Spotify, and then I get it iTunes, and then the rest is I get like 8% of others. So there's the listener traffic is different. What I've realised though out of doing it is listening audiences are different from watching audiences. They're very different. They're different in the way they interact, in the way that they interact with you socially. That's what I'm starting to find looking at the analytics of that. Yeah.
Well, I feel like your listener audience is crossing over with my reading audience.
Really?
Right. So same with the reading audience, right? They would normally or tend to be reading a hard copy book, and they'd be by themselves. But then you've got people who are now reading ebooks and Kindles and all the rest of it. So you can be attached to a computer. Or now, I was just listening earlier to an audiobook, and you're listening to stories being read to you, narrated to you. But what that makes me think about, yes, obviously our audiences are crossing over, but it also makes me think about the importance of that person who is narrating that story for you. There's such a big job on their shoulders putting forward this story in a way that's going to be engaging. I've read numerous reviews of books saying, this is a great book, but it's unfortunate about the poor narration for it. It's terribly read, boring as anything to listen to. Pick up the book.
Well, what I've come across in that sort of realm is, things that are fictitious should be read by an actor. Things that are factual should be read by the author.
Interesting.
Because people like to hear authors' voices, but
especially memoir.
Yeah, you want to hear it in their voice, right? But things definitely. That are,
I like biographies.
But when people are telling a fanciful story and that they're doing it with colour, you want someone with a colourful voice to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Yes, I'm delving a little into the online book or an audio book world at the moment.
Yes, you certainly are. We've been chatting a lot over the last few weeks about what to do and what not to do, and basically all my advice is do it.
Well, somehow I've managed to. My PhD supervisor is going to kill me, but somehow I've managed to take on a new project in all of this. But mostly because I see the value in reading at the moment, whether that's reading particular books, particular authors, but also just taking the time to not be tapped into a news feed or watching the news. You know me, I've got to turn that off.
Well, I think that's everyone at the moment. You turn on any news outlet at the moment. Corona, COVID-19, Corona. I think. Yeah,
that's kind of.
You need to take a break from Corona, and sometimes you just need to do something different with your media intake. But I'm really glad what you're doing with that. So it's called My Festival Book Club.
Yeah. So let me tell you how it started, right? So obviously, being an arts worker with a festival, a fantastic festival in town. I think we've spoken about this before. I work for the Sydney Writers Festival, and what I love about the Sydney Writers Festival is, as a writer myself, getting to listen to hundreds of authors. Great authors who are handpicked by a very intelligent, group of people who have a lot to say, but also have a lot to say on how they write and their craft, And I've always felt that the festival, it's one of the reasons why I volunteered myself in 2012 and then came back to work with them, you feel a bit of a quickening. I always find this with the Writers' Festival. You kind of go, you see a few different events, you take on a few different ideas, and
it is a bit energising.
By the time you've left there, you're like, I'm going to be the best writer this year. I'm going to do all these things, and I'm going to take on these tips. For in many different ways, and everybody is inspired by different people and different books, obviously, all those sorts of things. But in the process of the festival having to cancel this year, what I felt for my team as well as for me was that loss of that program of books, which would have been fantastic. I mean, this year's program was spoken about or introduced by the artistic director Michaela as, if the world were if we were in the final days, if the world were coming to an end, which books would you read for? Which books would you reach for?
How poignant.
Which authors would you go to,
So are you saying that this year's festival is about the end of the earth?
The theme was called almost midnight. Right?
So it's an apocalyptic view and what to read in the apocalypse.
So there were panels on pandemics. There
Good
were
timing, but bad
panels on
timing.
fires. There were panels on how we can fix things, climate issues, all of those sorts of things. But also at the same time, a lot of very topical non-fiction writers, and fiction writers who are at the top of their game. Booker Prize listed authors, great books to be reading, even despite the theme, but very topical, and so when the program was cancelled. I mean, the program is still online. I can see all the books that would have been. I can see all the events that would have been. It makes me sad for those events that I won't get to see. Anyway, well, I have a team of volunteers, as you know, and we would normally all be in contact. We're a bit of a family over this time of the year, with about 3 or 4 months of the year where we're all in high, contact with each other. We communicate quite often.
Yeah, it is an intense time of year for you guys.
Yeah, and to have that sort of just drop off quite suddenly, there was a space there to do something, and what I realised was that I really want to read all those books. I really want to read all those books that those authors wrote, and that was selected as something that was, a great thing to read right now. So I decided to start an online book club.
Okay.
I know it's nerdy. It's totally nerdy. I'm not even.
Well, out of the nerd, you've done some nerdy things before.
I'm not even a big fan of book clubs, right? But
this is pretty nerdy.
But what I like about this is that it's that I can share links and I can find video content and I can it's intertextual. I can bring in it's because it's not just about the book, right? And we're all reading it in different ways. So the first book we're going to talk about is we're going to read Patti Smith's Year of the Monkey, right? Which is a memoir, but I found it on audiobook and she narrates it, and so it's really lyrical. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to listen to it this week, and we're just going to meet up and have a Zoom chat and talk about what we liked about it and this sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure that on some occasions throughout the year I will be, cheating and perhaps maybe I won't have read as quickly as everybody else, and I'll be listening to what everybody else is talking about in that book club.
You do have a lot on,
and I'll be
some of these guys are
trying to get the cliff notes.
These guys are punching out books. Like you were telling me some of the figures, like people are punching out 60 books a year.
Yeah, I know.
That's more than one a week.
Oh, I'm jealous. They're like, if you think about it, most books, even when at uni when we had to read 7 or 8 books in a semester, I thought that was so challenging, but they're all 8, 9, 10 hours each.
Yeah,
right?
That's true, yeah.
So if you've got a whole weekend where you can spend 8 or 9 or 10 hours reading, guess what? You can read a book in 2 days. I could too if I had 4 or 5 hours a day.
If you had 4, yeah. I know it's like people that go to gyms and like work out and get highly muscular. Like you got some time.
You got some time on your hands, right? So for me, what I'm trying to cultivate is a daily habit, like an end of the day. Something to switch off, something to not think about the news, something to get lost in somebody else's words, and then have a nice conversation with
I think that's
50
good.
other people that are thinking the same thing.
I think, ironically, in this moment of quarantine/isolation, I think we do need some escapism. And instead of putting on that 24-hour news cycle that is, just fucking depressing, and something that's putting a whole bunch of fear into you, like, because there's things to look forward to as well. Like I think there's a lot of good things that can come out of this scenario. There is a silver lining to this deep dark cloud that is over us at the moment, and I think one of those silver linings is my festival book club. I think it's really good that it's one of those ideas that I think you should have done this ages ago.
Yeah, probably.
And it's when I look at it, I go, yeah, that's a really good idea.
Probably. Well, it's something,
But it's not something you probably,
it's not something that I would have thought about until this particular moment in my life, and I definitely didn't plan it ahead of time, that's for sure, and I've just whipped it all together in the last couple of weeks, as have a lot of people. This is a really interesting time for me as a researcher, right? So as you probably know,
I'm going to nick some of your wine.
Oh, today's episode is sponsored by Mr. Barvel Wines.
Don't do that. You have to beep that out now. No, Mr. Barvel wouldn't mind, actually. We know Mr. Barvel.
Fantastic.
Mr. Barvel, big shout out. I could use a sponsor too. We certainly drink your wine.
Yeah,
no, I'm gonna put some in my skewy glass here because I'm on beer rations and you've only got to go out for essential.
Just pour half a glass of that beautiful rosé
into that schooner glass. Yeah.
Anyway,
can you help me out here? I'm gonna have a bit
back to me.
Yeah, back to you.
So, you would have seen the joy in me as as the world events unfolded and people suddenly had to start thinking about connecting online and artists coming up with ways to put their work online, So
digital space is about digital interaction of people.
Absolutely.
This is perfect timing for you.
You know what I study. Nobody else.
Well, for our listeners at home.
For the listeners at home,
what do you study?
I'm in the final 6 months of writing up a PhD on digital writers festivals in Australia, with a couple of case studies on some really interesting emerging writers festivals and events in Australia who are world leading in the types of events that they're putting online and the types of engagement that they're offering to audiences online. But obviously I've been researching this for 5 years now. And certainly when I started, out of the 300 writers' festivals in Australia, there are 5 who are experimenting in this world. 2 of them...
They're a little bit risque.
2 of them are doing it pretty well.
The experimenting at writers' festivals. Sounds a bit raunchy.
I know. But when you think about it, what a logical space to be in, because as writers, we are absolutely tethered to our computers more than ever before. It's a new publishing space. It's our new creative space. It's our new collaboration space. Not even new. It's been around for a decade. Like,
yeah, but it's really starting to take shape, though. Like, and in people's minds of how to use it.
Well, and so what's interesting about this particular moment in time is that it's a catalyst for large groups of our society being forced to look online for artistic inspiration, for their workplace, for whatever, for
human connection,
for seeing their families. I mean, I'm a little bit of a hermit, right? And you know this. I enjoy being at home, so I'm not really too bothered by the self-isolation. But I swear, my social calendar is through the roof at the moment.
Well, we've already
I'm busier than I've ever been.
We've already done a few social Zoom events. So we've done social Zoom events with your family, and with friends.
Yep.
You would have been Zooming for work as well.
Yeah.
I've been Zooming for work, and
I'm catching up with more friends now, and even on the phone, like not necessarily a virtual.
I'm very happy with my Zoom kung fu though. I'm very happy.
Very well.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's talking on camera.
Zoom.
It's talking on camera and talking into a microphone.
Yeah.
So Zoom, like, I'm all over Zoom. Everyone's like, it's a bit awkward in this meeting. Everyone's looking at me like, I don't care. How are we going, everyone out there today? And welcome to our Zoom meeting. Today I'll be your host of a Roscoe Pagey train. No, it's not quite like that. If any of my friends at work are watching. But no, it is interesting to see different people in different scenarios and how they react.
Oh, I read a really interesting story the other day.
There's nowhere to hide in Zoom, I guess.
About how we're all judging people's backgrounds. It was a story that says, yes, we're judging you. We're judging your blank walls. We're judging your art. We're judging your bookshelves full of books you may never have read. I just thought it was great because it's true.
Oh man, I'm the total fucking rock star when it comes to a Zoom meeting. Like, because I do it from the edit suite, and I've got the whole studio in the background. They're like, I was in a meeting, a bit of a big meeting today actually, and a few of my bosses are there, and they're like, wow, you're actually in a studio. I'm going, yeah, this is my workspace, man. They're all working from their kitchen, and I'm like, I actually thought. And then after that, I did a cheeky post. I took a photograph of my workspace, and I'm like, this is me working from home. Anyone else here working from home? Shows your space.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. There was a few good ones out there.
Put mine up there.
You should. There's a few good ones out there.
Covered in post-its.
But again,
so many post-its.
Yeah.
Never seen so many post-its.
Yeah, well, now I've finally gotten around to the list of fear. I realised that I've been fearing this coronavirus idea. I don't mean the coronavirus in general. I mean, like, the scenario that it's brought. I think for 2 weeks, even though it's a funny thing with denial, right? When you're in denial, you'll say, I'm not in denial. Well, yeah. Even though you say you're not in denial, doesn't mean you ain't in denial. I kept saying to myself, I'm going to adjust to this. I'm going to get my head around it. But my actions and body were doing different things. Like, I still find it weird not commuting to work. I still find it weird not leaving the house as often as I would. And just those little, like, I'm very spontaneous. I'm like, going to the shops.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go hit a golf ball somewhere. Maybe not a golf course, but somewhere. That chance of being...
Start that at the local park, just at the top of the hill.
You're not allowed to go to the park. Oh. Not allowed to go to the park. You're not allowed to go anywhere, mate.
Plus the grass,
Yeah, and no one's mowing.
Nobody's mowing at the moment.
No
Not in our local area. Maybe
well, the park. Well, here's the irony: the parks aren't mowed, but the lawns around here are looking immaculate.
They are.
They are. Everyone's looking fantastic, and I must say, the house has never been fucking cleaner.
It's looking good.
It's looking good, man. Everything is together because we've got time to get it done.
Well, that's where the fear comes in, right? Because for a long time now, both of us, we're very busy people, and we purposely fill our calendars so that we are busy and we stay busy, so that we stay interested, and we both respond to a deadline pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
So we purposely give ourselves deadlines in order to be able to make sure that we do the work.
Yeah, I call it the head in the noose philosophy.
Yeah,
you put your head in a noose, and if you don't get this done, you're going to get hung.
Yeah,
like,
Personally, I don't love the analogy, but in the end, yes. Well, especially if people are relying on me, I'm really good with a deadline. Personal deadlines, harder.
Yeah,
much
definitely,
more difficult because
I
know that I'm going to let myself off because I'm a softie. right? But if
I'm really harsh on myself.
But if I'm, working for someone or with someone, then obviously I want to please that person and I want to make sure that I get things done, But what we've been saying to ourselves for a really long time is, I just wish I had more time.
If I just had some more time.
If I just had another few hours in the day, right? And now I've got
the 2 hours.
An extra
I've got them.
2 or 3 hours in the day.
What I've been doing is sleeping more. I've been catching all that sleep, and I must say, out of things, everything that's out of balance, my sleep is fantastic. Gosh, I've been sleeping. I've been sleeping like there is no tomorrow. Oh, hold on. Anyway, so I've been sleeping. It's all the same
day, man.
Yeah, it's all the same fucking day, man.
Janis Joplin, shout out there.
Yeah. Now I've got lost into a place called Warren, actually. What's the Empire Records?
Oh yeah.
Why don't you just take those CDs and stick them up your ass? Because it would hurt a lot, Warren.
I love that movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe there's I was going to go through the DVDs at some point and assess all of. That's the only thing that's left.
You know that our life is in order if the DVDs are alphabetized.
Yeah, I know. But I haven't been because now we're in this streaming environment. The DVDs, no one gives a fuck anymore. And for someone who gives a fuck about DVDs, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So I should give a fuck about my DVDs.
Yeah.
Because I've got a lot of them. And I should care. And at least present them well if I'm not going to watch them. But I do want to watch them. I suppose I need to revisit it. But I guess, I've been in denial, man. I just thought that this is going to blow over in 2 weeks. Like, even though I said to myself, Ross, this is not going to blow over. This is serious. People are going to die. This is serious. You've got to do your part in society to make sure you do the right thing and do the right thing by society and do the right thing by yourself. Mm-hmm. And you can say that to yourself so many times, but I think, I was just in denial. I think this week I finally have come to grips with the idea that this may be life until, September. This may be life until then.
I'm not in the same place. I seem to have become accustomed to the fact that this is going to be real for some time, very quickly. My issue is grappling with what this looks like for us in our new situation and accommodating for the fact that this is a stressful situation, because I wasn't factoring in the idea that it's hard to think about things at the moment. It's hard to concentrate on things.
Yeah, it's hard to get your head around things,
because you've just got this back channel that's constantly running on, okay, what's the stress situation that
zombies.
In the zombie.
In the background, you're like, are they lying? Are there zombies out there? Is that why we have to stay home? Is it zombies? It's zombies, isn't it?
You wish.
Yeah, it could be. It'd be a lot easier if it fucking was, right?
At least we know what to do.
You know what to do then.
I've seen that show. I know what to do.
Yeah, you know what to do if it's zombies. If it's no zombies, it's really difficult. It's all politically correct.
Yeah. And I guess what I've been thinking about is the amount of how this stressful situation is impacting people personally and in a way just slowing things down. So giving myself a little bit of a break at the moment is necessary to be able to say, look, I know you want to change your routine. I know you want to adapt to this situation. I know that you've accepted that this is the way that it's going to be for a little while, but just also accept that this is a stressful situation too, and just give yourself a little bit of time to adjust. Because it will take a little bit of time. And we're starting. We've got a morning routine
this
that started.
Week, this week I started. I'm a routine
sunset
person.
Routine. You are a routine.
I'm a very
person.
routine person, and
I'm not a routine person.
when my routine's been broken, it takes me a while to find my feet.
But in this particular situation, I think we do need routine. I think that routine is what's going to get us through. Even for me.
No, don't get me wrong. I'm agile enough to be manoeuvrable, but when you break those core routine things, I find it challenging.
Yeah, and especially when we've got other people coming along for this ride now with us too. It's not something that we're doing by ourselves. This is something that we're all doing with all of our
I haven't gone on one of those
workplaces.
10-day silent retreats where I've just gone, fuck, I don't want to be here. It's day 3, I'm going to fucking shout at someone. It's not like that.
No.
I still want to shout at someone, but it's not like that. I think, oh man, it's there's that word again, unprecedented. It's unprecedented, and I just hope that there is something bright on the other side of it. And I think digital platforms is one of those bright things. I think the working environment, this idea of 9 to 5, will be broken apart.
Yeah, and city central workspaces. As two people who commute for an hour each way at the beginning and the start of each day. For us particularly, maybe not so much for the people that are quite close to the city who it's very easy to get to and from work, but for us particularly, this new working situation is enlightening, because it makes you think about, well, if this is what's possible, if we can get some workplaces, maybe obviously not all of them, some people do require that face-to-face service, but for the organisations that can move online, you've got to think that after 6 months they might assess what's viable moving back to where we were before. Is this really where we want to go again?
I've been thinking about ratios. Ratios
surely
are important. Like a big part of my job is when there's lots of people at my workplace. I need to be there because a bigger part of what I do is face to face. But the biggest part of what I do is actually online. Most of what I do is online. Like, we're looking at the ratio. In a normal situation, if I had to work from home, it's 80-20. 80% of what I do is online, 20% is face-to-face. But that 20% makes that 80. You can't... Those two
can't go without the 20%.
Those two compartments go together. But now that there's very little people at work, the ratio is like, 99% of what I do. Questioning is, what's the ratio? What is the ratio of what you are required? I think it's going to force us to really analyse what the workplace is, and I think that perhaps it will create a bit more of a workplace revolution. I think that happened with the women's movement. That changed the way society thinks about the workforce. When they started giving us Saturdays off, that changed the workforce. I think this is a really good precursor to automation as well. When automation really starts kicking in, this experience is going to be referenced in what to do in those situations. Perhaps we need to give people a bit more slack in their lifestyles, allow parents to be home more with their children, allow partners to be together with their families. I think there's more of that, and I think that perhaps would even have a reflection on the mental health state of society as a whole. I think there's a lot of positive things out of this. But with that said, man, we're looking at 6 million people in our country that are getting laid off. They're going to the wall, and that is a massive growing pain. Easily said on this side of the fence.
Hopefully, we can find ways to hold on.
Yeah,
hibernate.
Well, that's it. Well, hibernate.
Put everything to sleep for 6 months.
Some people call it a hibernation. Other people call it an induced coma. I think there's different ways to look at that, right? But look, totally unprecedented times and a whole bunch of craziness. But with that said, that's where you get your crisis management. My big shout out, obviously, to our entertainment industry chums.
Yeah, our local filmmaker community,
and all other people that have lost work out there. My heart goes out to you guys.
And across the country, there's so many people that are in that are really just having to have a think about how things are going for them. At the
there
moment.
are greener fields out there, but we've got to ride the storm, and there's no two ways about it. We've got to go through winter with this thing. It's just, and science shows that these things propagate better in winter. We're looking at on the barrel of a bad situation in so many different ways. But
we're doing the right thing, because
I think we are,
with everybody staying at home, everybody staying inside. All we have to do is flatten that curve, right? We just have to take the hit for the time being, so that then less people die. That is ultimately the only point of it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the whole idea is so
that
our medical services don't get overrun. There's not a run on our medical services where it breaks.
There are so many people that we know who are nurses, teachers at the moment doing such great work, helping everybody
They're frontline workers.
Stay in their jobs at the moment.
They're the
and
people
help people.
They're at the front of this thing. Being professionals and artists, we're at home, whinging about our commute to work, but there are people out there that are doing some serious work. So, like, another big shout out to all the wonderful people out there that are doing so many wonderful things. Digital festivals, look out. Watch this space.
Well, it's certainly some interesting times for me, that's for sure.
But more onto My Festival Book Club. How does one find My Festival Book Club?
Oh, it's a Facebook based club because that's where my little gang congregates.
And you have a gang?
Well, yeah. When during festival time, when we talk in that space, and so the best space to host any event is in the space where people already are.
Generally works that way.
No point trying to move them to Snapchat or like onto into a website.
Well, I'm going to say what other producers say to me all the time. You need to be on all platforms. You need to get yourself on Instagram. You need to get yourself on YouTube.
Yeah.
You need to get everywhere. But in the meantime,
in the meantime, I've just got to read a book.
As you're watering this plant, where do we find you? So it's on Facebook?
You can find My Festival Book Club on Facebook, yes. Yeah. There's a private group you can join. We've got events running for, every 2 weeks. There's a different, festival book that we're reading and thinking about and swapping ideas on. We're going to meet up every week and chat about it and then, post videos, comment on it. I don't really know. We're going to make it up as we go along.
That's the best way to do it.
Ultimately, the whole point of this is me being able to read the books, right? And I've been very upfront about
I think
but I've got 50 other people who also want to read the books. And we're all reasonably intelligent people, so I think we can have a good conversation.
This has come up a few times. Like, there's nothing wrong with having a bit of a selfish desire and a public endeavour. And I think, talking to my last few guests and thinking about what I do, like even on the podcast, for instance, I have a really selfish desire to be on the podcast. And that's so I can have conversations with people, so I'm fully locked in, teach you to be a better listener, be a better talker.
Yeah.
And it's a really good source of information because you get to, ask questions of somebody for a whole hour without interruptions.
Yes.
So that's my selfish desire in it, but at the same time you get to promote people and you get to do all these other nice things, and I think it's really good to have that sort of cheeky self desire, and I think reading books is really nerdy one. Yeah, but a good one.
It is a very nerdy one. And obviously Made in the West is still at madeinthewest.com.au. Maybe we might think about putting maybe we'll talk to some filmmakers about putting some past films up online or something like that. Who knows? Maybe we can find some ways to entertain some people in the next 6 months.
Well, we're still workshopping. We're still workshopping a lot of these things, guys. So either which way, Made in the West is still running as far as it stands at this point.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we communicate with everybody when it's time.
Totally.
By the middle of the year, we'll be thinking about what can we actually do.
And we'll be pushing out our promo by then, and we'll have more of an idea of it proceeding. But with that said, if the whole thing falls over and we've got to do this for a year, we will be doing something online anyway.
Yes.
So at worst, we will deliver you a digital festival, and which is totally possible, and it may have to force our hand if we do it. So either which way, baby, we're running.
At absolute best, we'll have like a 600-person community networking event online.
Yeah.
Everybody all together.
I might have some more Gucci gear by then as well. So.
Yeah, totally. Like there's so many different things that we can do, but
live to Facebook
only
sort of
if
stuff.
You leave me in charge.
And I'll do it live to Facebook, and I'll do it with my new videos, which hopefully is coming soon.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later, Misty.
Oh, there's plenty of things. That's right. But in the meantime, stay strong, stay safe, stay inside, and if you can, stay creating.
Yeah, and look, guys, if you need anything done in promo after the craziness is done, or even during the craziness, if you have any craziness that you want done, StillSearchin Productions is available to do promos, Foley, advertisements. You think about it, we will do it. The only thing we don't do is weddings and porn. So anything in between those two spectrums, we'll totally do it. But look, it has been really good to have you guys on the show. Don't forget, we are still running Made in the West until further notice, and the Pagey train is moving to a more online spectrum by doing our interviews over the web. But don't forget to subscribe, and if you want notifications about us, don't forget to hit the little bell here. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Anchor, and of course on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining the show, Misty.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you on the Pagey train next time. And that's it.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Last one in the chair for a while. The rest of it's online.
I feel like I'll be the first one back in the chair again.
No, I've already booked that guy. I've already booked him. It's going to be a surprise. He's a really cool dude.